Amazing discovery. Millionaire opens stranger's suitcase and uncovers incredible love story. Jack Thompson sat in his lavish office, the sunlight filtering lazily through the window, highlighting the meticulously organized chaos of his life. Folders stacked high, framed accolades on the wall, and a plush leather couch that felt more like an empty vessel than a comfortable resting place. Yet, despite his success as a real estate mogul in the quaint, picturesque Midwestern town he called home, an unsettling hollowness gnawed at him. The red-bricked streets and charming mom-and-pop shops that surrounded his empire seemed to mock his achievements as they whispered memories of a life filled with warmth, a life he had let slip away. Claire had been everything to him, an artist full of dreams. But her laughter, once vibrant and alive, faded as Jack chased deals and accolades. He'd wrapped himself in a cocoon of ambition, unaware that the very fabric of his happiness was unraveling. Now, at 45, he found it hard to breathe under the weight of his loneliness. The phone never rang with her name, and when he closed his eyes at night, his neural pathways were haunted by visions of her spirited smile, an ache that amplified with every tick of the clock. It was then that an unexpected envelope on his desk caught his attention. An estate sale invitation for a long-gone family rumored to have enlivened the town during the Great Depression. Curiosity piqued, he brushed aside the bureaucracy of his business for just a moment and attended the sale. Among the debris of the past, he discovered a dust-covered suitcase. As he unlatched its rusty clasp and lifted the lid, the musty smell enveloped him like a time machine. Within lay a treasure of faded photographs and letters inked with thoughts of love, each piece whispering a tale of Sarah, a spirited woman, and Tom, a musician bound by societal judgments and economic strife. Sifting through their handwritten notes, Jack felt their pain shift something within him. He sensed the distance between who they had been and who he was now. Their sacrifices mirrored his emotional detachment, igniting questions he had long buried. What sacrifices had he made? Was his ambition worth the hollowness within? The letters gripped him, revealing a passionate love story interrupted by the pangs of reality, deadlines, and expectations. Jack's mind raced, questioning if stepping away from his empire to embrace vulnerability was a path he could dare to tread. Each night the words haunted him, persistently echoing as judgmental whispers from his peers claimed success equated to happiness. The internal conflict churned within him, threads of desperation weaving into his thoughts. He could sense that clarity eluded him, almost taunting him. Each time he contemplated reaching out to Claire, he faltered. What if she had let go too? What if she was happier without him? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Jack stood on the precipice of a decision coated in uncertainty. Clutching the letters, he felt a weight bearing down, a scenario echoing the emotional distress that had clouded Sarah and Tom's love. Would he allow fear to dictate his actions? Should he let his history of ambition and a future of uncertainty bury him? Or could he boldly confront the lingering shadow of Claire, challenging the ghosts of their past? As he wrestled with the moments of clarity slipping through his fingers, the phone rang abruptly, breaking him from his contemplation. The number was unfamiliar. His heart raced. Perhaps this would be the chance he'd been too afraid to seek, or another reminder of what he had lost. He hesitated, pulse quickening as he pondered what awaited him on the other end. Would it be hope or despair? A connection reclaimed or a longing left unresolved? The letters had brought him to the brink. But now it was time to choose his next step, a choice that would reverberate through the chapters of his life yet to be written. Jack inhaled deeply, steeling himself against the wave of anxiety that surged through his body. He lifted the receiver, his hand trembling slightly as he answered. The voice on the other end carried an urgency that felt both familiar and foreign. "Is this Jack Thompson?" a woman asked, her tone brisk yet laced with something deeper, concern, perhaps. "Yes, this is Jack," he replied, trying to mask the uncertainty that gnawed at him. "I'm Sarah's granddaughter. We've just discovered the letters you found at the estate sale. I'd like to discuss them with you. It's important." The name struck him like an electric shock. Sarah, the artist, the dreamer, whose story had found a way into his soul. A rush of curiosity and trepidation flooded him. "What do you mean, important?" "He's a part of our family's legacy, you see. Those letters, they're more than just stories from the past. They might change everything we thought we knew." Jack's mind raced, the implications unfolding like the letters he'd studied so carefully. "Where can we meet?" He found his voice emerging with renewed urgency, the prospect of real connection igniting a flicker of hope. "Let's meet at the coffee house on Maple Street tomorrow at 2 p.m. Her voice softened. "I believe you'll understand why this is so crucial." After the call ended, a whirlwind of emotions overtook him. He stood still, the office around him blurring into the background. Tomorrow could offer answers, a bridge between past and present, a chance to reclaim a piece of himself long since buried under ambition. The letters had begun a journey within him, and now the invitation from Sarah's granddaughter felt like a pivotal turning point. As night encroached, Jack found his thoughts spiraling again. Would this encounter unearth buried hopes and regrets? He recalled the lines of a letter where Sarah had expressed longing intertwined with despair, a narrative steeped in sacrifice. Those same elements echoed his own life, a relentless pursuit of success that had led him away from love. The idea of sharing the intimate weight of these letters with someone connected to Sarah reignited a flicker of empathy. The following day dawned bright and unforgiving. As he drove through the familiar streets, each milestone felt laden with echoes of lost opportunities and reckless decisions. The quaint coffee shop came into view, its warm glow promising comfort. Jack stepped inside, inhaling the rich aroma of brewing coffee, a blend of warmth and uncertainty swirling within. He spotted Sarah's granddaughter at a corner table, her features a mix of determination and nostalgia. As he approached, he was instantly struck by the resemblance. Her fervor and energy mirrored Sarah's. "You came," she said, a tentative smile breaking the surface of her apprehension. "I had to," he replied, feeling the heaviness in the air. "Your grandmother's letters, they've changed everything for me." As they began to converse, opening up about their shared pasts, Jack felt walls crumbling he hadn't even known were there. But buried within the revelations lay questions that begged to be answered. Who was he without the trappings of success? What would stepping beyond his self-imposed boundaries mean for his future? The discussion opened a floodgate of emotions, nostalgia, hope, and the looming regret of a life half-lived. As the conversation deepened, Jack sensed a revelation hovering just out of reach, tantalizing and terrifying at the same time. Could he embrace vulnerability? Was it time to rewrite his story, one filled with love and connection rather than solitary pursuits? Suddenly, his phone chimed with a message that disrupted the unfolding moment. Glancing down, he saw Claire's name flash on the screen, a text from her, out of the blue. Fear and exhilaration collided within him, the air thick with inevitable change. He could feel the ground shift beneath him, teetering on the brink of a defining choice. It was time to choose whether to confront the past head-on or retreat into the comfort of solitude he knew all too well. The message lingered, an unanswered question suspended in the air, pulling him further into the depths of his own uncertainty. How would he respond to Claire's unexpected outreach? With the weight of his choices pressing heavily, Jack's heart raced, teetering on the edge of transformation. Would he seize the opportunity to reclaim love, or would he retreat once more into the safety of his success? The time had come to face the echoes of his past, leaving him with one haunting thought. Was he ready to embrace the unknown? Jack's mind was a storm, thoughts racing as he deliberated over the message flashing on his screen. Claire had always been the person he noticed less and less as his ambition eclipsed the personal connections he once valued. What could our text mean? Did she sense his growing restlessness? The implications of that alone sent his heart into a chaotic sprint. He excused himself from the conversation with Sarah's granddaughter, a pang of guilt trickling through him. "I'll be right back," he muttered, his voice barely steady. The moment he stepped outside the cafe, he felt the cool air wash over him, a momentary reprieve from the internal whirlwind. Jack leaned against the cafe's brick wall, his pulse racing as he unlocked his phone. The message was simple yet loaded. "Can we talk? I miss you." The sincerity of her words struck him. It was an invitation to confront the shadows he had tried to keep hidden, a reminder of the warmth he had turned his back on in pursuit of success. What would responding mean? Could he risk digging into their past? Behind him, the laughter spilling from the cafe felt jarring, a happy world in stark contrast to the uncertainty that enveloped him. After a moment of hesitation, Jack replied, "Yes, when and where?" The decision to engage filled him with both dread and exhilaration. He returned to the table, a sense of urgency coursing through him. Sarah's granddaughter, whose name he had yet to grasp in the whirlwind of this revelation, was still immersed in thoughts of her grandmother's letters. "I'm sorry, it's been a lot to digest," he said, refocusing on their conversation. "What else did you want to tell me about the letters?" Her gaze sharpened, as though sensing the turmoil within him. "They hold secrets about our family, about Sarah's entire life that have been left unsaid. I believe they can change your understanding of her, and maybe even yourself. You mentioned they impacted you deeply. Can you share how?" In the stillness around them, Jack took a breath. Here was a chance to sift through his own narrative, intertwining it with Sarah's. He opened up about the longing that echoed within the letters, how they mirrored his own fears of isolation and relentless ambition. Each story from Sarah felt like an invitation to confront his decisions. As Jack spoke, layers of his guarded persona began to peel away. "I've spent years chasing success, fooling myself into thinking it would bring me happiness. But with every achievement, I felt more disconnected from who I am." Each word resonated with a poignancy he had long suppressed. "The letters taught me that connection is what really matters." The granddaughter leaned forward, captivated. "That's profound. Do you think you're at a point where you can choose connection over ambition?" Jack's heart thumped painfully against his ribs. "I don't know yet. Claire wants to talk again. Part of me thinks stepping back into that friendship is risky. Would that friendship lead him to regret or redemption? You know, recognizing what you've lost can be as powerful as finding new paths. What would it mean to you if you chose to reconnect?" She placed the letters on the table, their presence looming like ghosts of a past Jack could decide to mourn or embrace. "What if I fail?" Jack asked, fear creeping back in like an unwelcome shadow. "Failure isn't as daunting as the regret of never trying," she replied softly, her honesty anchoring his flickering determination. As their conversation wove deeper into personal revelations, Jack felt something shift within him, an awareness that he could reclaim love, not merely success. It all hung on the choice he would make in the coming moments, the decision, the words to craft a message to Claire. Just then, his phone buzzed again. It was another message from her. Jack's breath caught. The weight of his choices felt both liberating and intimidating, the duality enveloping him in a cocoon of urgency. He realized that whatever his next step was, it had to come from a place deeper than ambition, a raw truth waiting to reveal itself. Would he finally have the courage to step into connection, or would he retreat into the shadows once more? The moment hung precariously as he stared at the screen, and somewhere within him, hope began to flicker anew. Jack's fingers hovered over the screen, the soft glow illuminating his conflicted expression. Each vibration of the device felt amplified, summoning echoes of his past decisions and missed connections. Was he ready to tread back toward Claire? The question felt heavy, suspended like mist on a June morning, both enticing and suffocating. He inhaled deeply, burdened by the complexity of it all. As he mentally replayed past moments with Claire, warmth and longing punctuated by sharp regrets enveloped him. They had once shared laughter, moments of genuine intimacy that now felt distant yet familiar. Jack had buried those memories beneath layers of professional ambition, believing he could outrun the emotions that would slow him down. Yet it was inevitable. Here stood the message, a lifeline pulled taut across the years. The last time they spoke had felt like a closing chapter, but Claire's text reopened the book. What was he truly afraid of? A confrontation with his own fears, or the risk of rekindling what had been lost? Jack, the granddaughter's voice pulled him from his reverie, her concern evident. What are you thinking? I'm just trying to figure out what this means for me, he confessed, feeling vulnerable. The choice feels more monumental than it should. You're not alone in that. Everyone faces choices that define them, often at the worst moments. Her empathetic gaze bore through him, reminding him that there was no failure in vulnerability. What would reclaiming that friendship with Claire look like? He closed his eyes, envisioning a world where their connection could breathe anew. It would mean stepping into the uncertainty of broken trust and old wounds. And maybe opening that door could bring healing or heartache.
Or a chance to grow, she pointed out. You've mentioned feeling disconnected, but have you considered that reconnecting with Claire might help bridge that gap?
Jack contemplated this. Could this be a pathway back to himself? The thought flickered through him like the glow of the neon cafe sign behind them. Seeking success had led him astray, but was the journey toward reconnection a worthwhile detour?
You're right, he murmured, uncertainty shaking his resolve, but also igniting glimmers of possibility. With a firm breath, he finally allowed the fragments of his scattered thoughts to coalesce. Choosing connection means embracing the unknown, even if it's uncomfortable.
The granddaughter nodded, a spark in her eyes that mirrored his mounting resolve.
So, what's holding you back?
As the question hung in the air, Jack recognized the weight of his self-imposed barriers. Fear of rejection, anxiety over vulnerabilities, it all played a part in his hesitation. Yet there was another voice tugging at him, urging him to remember the warmth he once felt.
I guess I'm still afraid of being hurt, he admitted, allowing the truth to leave his lips without the armor he had so carefully crafted. But staying stuck in this cycle and never taking that step feels worse.
Then you know what you must do. Don't just settle for a life dictated by fear, she encouraged, her gaze encouraging him to pivot. The very act of contemplating connection felt like a leap into the unknown, but the potential was intoxicating. Reach out to Claire. Find out if there's a way forward. He took out his phone once more, feeling a rush of adrenaline pulsating through him. As he began drafting a message to Claire, his heart raced with a blend of excitement and trepidation. This was a point of transformation, the choice that could unravel or rebuild. Just before hitting send, he paused. Questions lingered in the back of his mind. Would adjusting the course of his life yield change? Or would he discover that the shadows he feared had merely been illusions all along? The moment felt monumental. He hesitated, then pressed send. The silence that followed echoed loud against the chatter from inside the cafe, a tangible tension in the air. As he leaned back against the wall, the gravity of his choice sank in. A clear opening had formed, awaiting Claire's reply. In this moment of indecision, Jack faced a different kind of challenge. What if her response did not align with his hopes? Would he crumble under disappointment or find the resilience to press forward no matter the outcome? A new revelation stirred within him, a sense of awakening. He was not the man he had been moments before. He had stepped onto a path, one marked by risk, vulnerability, and, potentially, growth. The sound of his phone buzzing again pierced the stillness. It was a notification, and Jack's heart pounded. Had Claire replied? Frozen in anticipation, he glanced down at the screen, the waking world around him fading away. The answer lay before him. The time had come to confront it, whatever it might reveal. Jack's breath hitched as he unlocked his phone. The notification glowed like an ember, igniting both hope and dread within him. He blinked at the screen, trying to reconcile the weight of the past with the promise of the present. The message from Claire was brief yet potent. "Hi, Jack. It's been a while. I was surprised to hear from you. Can we meet?" A rush of emotions surged through him: longing, anxiety, relief. Meeting could mean anything. It could be a chance to rebuild, or merely a moment to tie up loose ends. Jack's heart thudded as he contemplated his response, the implications echoing in his mind. This was a moment he had envisioned in countless daydreams, conversations he played out in the quiet recesses of his mind, scenarios colored by nostalgia and doubt. Yet, now that it was real, anxiety coiled in his gut, twisting like a spring. What if they were both different? Had the years really allowed room for growth, or had they merely sowed more division between them? He glanced at the cafe door, where murmurs of laughter and clinking cups faded into a blur. The granddaughter's eyes flickered with encouragement, silently urging him to respond. "It's just a meeting," he murmured, though his voice reflected little of his conviction. A meeting meant venturing deeper into the unknown, the very territory he had avoided for years. But suddenly, the lure of possibility loomed larger than the shadows. He recalled their shared dreams, late-night conversations, even the arguments that had made endings feel unavoidable. By initially retreating from vulnerability, he had allowed anguish to fester, and the idea of facing that truth sent shivers down his spine. Jack's fingers moved almost instinctively, tapping out, "I'd love to. How about Friday at noon?" The moment he pressed send, a liberating rush coursed through him. It was one step, but it felt monumental. Could he really navigate this meeting with Claire without losing himself? The answer loomed heavy in his mind, rattling his resolve. Yet there was something transformative about taking initiative, reclaiming agency over his own narrative. In the past, his ambition had been a shield against emotional engagement. Now he could forge a new identity, one boldly intertwining ambition and connection. He let the prospect wash over him, realizing he had been entrapped by his own fears, afraid that revisiting Claire would unravel the life he had meticulously constructed. Taking a risk was a bitter pill to swallow, but he recognized it was a necessary ingredient for growth. In the days leading up to Friday, Jack focused on preparing himself. He retraced their history, unearthing old memories, the laughter, the warmth, the silence that had once held so much meaning. It was a trip into vulnerability he hadn't anticipated, but he realized he had to embrace every facet of who he had been, to understand who he was becoming. On the morning of their meeting, the world around him felt charged with possibility. The air was thick with tension and surprise, like a coiled spring ready to release. He dressed carefully, aware that this was more than just an outfit, it was a declaration of intent. Walking toward the cafe where they had shared countless conversations, Jack felt the ground beneath him teetering between past and present. The familiar structure loomed ahead, a vessel of so many emotions. As he crossed the threshold, the bell chimed a welcome he hadn't realized he craved. The nervous energy fluttered in the pit of his stomach as he spotted Claire at a corner table, her presence instantly grounding. Seeing her in the flesh magnified every sense, her features sharper than memory recalled, exuding credentials earned through experience and time. But now was not the time for reflection. It was time for confrontation. Stepping closer, Jack held his breath, summoning the inner strength forged through days of contemplation. The moment of truth awaited on the brink, and he was finally ready to engage with the blurred lines of their shared history. The smile that crossed Claire's face held both hesitation and warmth, and Jack prepared himself for whatever followed. What new layers would their reunion uncover? Before he could contemplate further, Claire spoke, her voice drawing him in. "Jack, I'm glad you came," she said, her gaze steady yet searching. The challenge was set. Now, the real journey of rediscovery commenced. Could they really navigate their histories and forge a new bond, or would the weight of regrets pull them back into silence? As the moment expanded, one thing became clear. Jack was no longer just a passive observer in his life. He was ready to confront the past, embrace the present, and challenge his own limits. The conversation flowed, each word a brushstroke in a portrait being reconstructed, but shadows of doubt loomed. Jack could sense the contours of their journey shifting anew, but held his breath for what lay just ahead. Would this reconnection bring reconciliation, or unleash the specters of their history once more? The tension ignited in anticipation of the answers they both desperately sought. Claire's smile faded slightly as her eyes searched his, a flicker of uncertainty creating a ripple in the warmth of their reunion. Jack felt his heart race. Even the air around them seemed charged with unspoken questions. He needed to gather himself and steer the conversation in a direction that could ease the tension, yet the shadow of doubt loomed large. "Well," he began, struggling to find a foothold amidst a flood of memories and implications, "it's been quite some time, hasn't it? The years seem to have a way of shifting everything around." His voice felt tinged with hesitance, almost like a plea for reassurance. "They really do," she replied, her voice steadying. This was new ground for both of them, where the weight of nostalgia mingled with the desire for growth. Jack took a sip of his coffee, allowing the heat to stir his thoughts. The cafe bustled around them, patrons occupied with their own lives, oblivious to the private world they were collectively navigating. He studied Claire, recalling the woman he had known, the fierce debater, the dreamer who wanted to change the world. He wondered what parts of her had remained and what had transformed. "I've thought about you often," she ventured, drawing him back from his spiral. "The decisions we made, they echo, don't they?" He hesitated, the vulnerability of such acknowledgement palpable in the air between them. "They do. Sometimes I wonder if I was too focused on my career, too afraid to let anything else in." There it was. The admission slipped out before he could fully consider the consequences. Claire's expression softened as she leaned forward, her eyes piercing but not judgmental. "I think we both were," she said quietly. "But I've come to realize that our paths intertwine in ways we can never predict. Life has a way of forcing us to confront our choices." Jack nodded slowly, aware that this moment was both a reckoning and a chance for redemption. It was crucial to understand the past if he wanted to rebuild something of significance. "And what about now? What do we do with this understanding?" His question hung in the air, raw and unguarded. "Maybe it's about honesty," Claire replied, a flicker of determination igniting in her voice. "We've changed, we've grown, but the past is still part of us. We can't just erase it. We have to face it." Her words struck him like a revelation. The confrontation wasn't just about the two of them. It was also about his own inhibitions and the therapeutic reclamation of his aspirations and dreams. Perhaps there was courage in vulnerability, something he had shied away from for too long. "What did we mean to each other?" Jack asked, suddenly overwhelmed by the weight of unasked questions. Each syllable felt like a stumble into the unknown. How do we reconcile that? The atmosphere felt different now, the current shifting as memories that had once echoed with pain began to buzz with potential. Claire's brows knitted together as if weighing her response. "I think we have to be honest, not just with each other, but with ourselves. I've learned that grappling with our emotions isn't a weakness, it's how we grow." Jack held her gaze, the moment pressing against him with urgent clarity. He had safeguarded his heart for too long, standing on the periphery of his feelings. It was time for action, time to reintegrate this fractured relationship, and more critically, his own fragmented identity. "What do you want moving forward?" he asked quietly, intrigue sparking within him. "I want to find out if we can still be part of each other's lives," Claire confessed, an unguarded sincerity haloing her words. "But I need to know." "You're willing to confront what happened between us without letting it define us." Her challenge ignited resolve deep within him. He was ready for the confrontation, ready to confront the fears that had kept him immobilized for so long. There was a future to forge, and the past, while haunting, could be the very catalyst for transformation. "Then I'm in," he said, the conviction rising in his chest. "Let's navigate this together." The possibilities unfurled before them, framed by honesty, the prospect of rekindled connection pulsing with energy. But as they exchanged tentative smiles, Jack felt the stirrings of something larger brewing beneath the surface. Would they align their visions for a future, or would the specters of their past insistently tug them toward divide once more? As the conversation deepened, Jack's mind raced with potential, his heart pounding in sync with the rhythm of their dialogue. Questions simmered beneath, but he found solace in one undeniable truth. This was the moment he would begin weaving together the fabric of courage, hope, and a desire for genuine connection. What lay ahead would ultimately test their will to redefine themselves, but amid the rising tension, Jack was ready for the fight. And somewhere within him blossomed a nagging awareness. The real challenge wasn't merely with Claire, it was confronting who he had been all along. Could he truly reconcile the past in a way that prepared him for a better tomorrow? As Jack stepped out of the cafe, the bustling street felt different. The rhythm of the world around him, the honking cars, the chatter of passing pedestrians, seemed to pulse with a newfound energy that he hadn't realized he'd been missing. He glanced back at Claire, who was swathed in the glow of the midday sun, her presence igniting a flicker of hope inside him. Their conversation had opened a door he didn't know he was ready to step through. He had felt unmoored for far too long, focusing on a career that, while rewarding, lacked the warmth of personal connection. The authenticity of Claire's words rang in his ears. Honesty was not merely a bridge to build anew, but a tool to dismantle the walls he'd fortified around himself. He had unconsciously crafted a version of his life, one cluttered with accolades and promotions, but devoid of genuine engagement with his emotions. As he walked, each step became a meditation, guiding him to reflect on what Claire's challenge had revealed. There was so much more to his narrative than striving for professional success. The deeper layers of his identity were waiting to emerge, like hidden gems buried beneath years of self-imposed restraint. Arriving at his office, a sleek structure of glass and steel, Jack hesitated before entering. On the surface, his job as a financial analyst was demanding, yet there was a palpable void where his creativity used to surge. He couldn't ignore it any longer. The ambitions he once held didn't simply evaporate. They lay dormant, begging for resurrection. That day, he decided not to retreat into the structured routine of his work. Instead, he made a conscious choice to engage with colleagues in ways he hadn't allowed himself before. In the afternoon, he invited a few team members to lunch, a small act that felt audacious and liberating all at once. Over sandwiches, they laughed and shared stories, and for the first time in years, he felt both seen and heard. Conversations shifted from mundane topics to personal anecdotes, uncovering hidden vulnerabilities among them. Jack could feel the relationship between his coworkers shift from mere professional camaraderie to something more impactful. He reveled in the authenticity of their exchanges, the warmth suffusing through the air, reminding him of his own interactions with Claire. Returning to his desk, Jack leaned back in his chair and gazed out of the window. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, he envisioned integrating this openness into his work, a place where not just numbers existed, but also stories, aspirations, and connection. What would happen if the analytical and the emotional could coexist harmoniously in his life? Yet doubts lingered. What would this newfound perspective cost him? Would his colleagues judge him for his vulnerable moments or view them as distractions from the business at hand? He grappled with the fear of rejection, feelings all too familiar from his past with Claire. But this was different. He had the chance to reclaim his narrative, to redefine success beyond spreadsheets and quarterly reports. As the day wound down, Jack received an unexpected email from his manager, inviting him to present a new project idea at the upcoming team meeting. Instead of feeling apprehensive, excitement flared within him. He seized this opportunity as a platform for innovation that could rewrite his role in the company. Who said analysis had to be mundane? What if he infused his vision with creativity, drawing on his personal experiences to enrich his presentation? On his way home, Jack's mind raced with possibilities. Each concept took root, growing into a vision that seemed to shimmer with promise. How would his colleagues respond? Would they appreciate this leap, or would the voice of doubt whisper its familiar refrain? Determined not to let fear choke the spark inside him, he reached out to Claire, hoping she might join him in brainstorming for his presentation. Their earlier conversation echoed the pathway ahead. Embracing vulnerability together could lead to something remarkable. But would her presence revitalize his spirit or summon the ghosts of their past? As he pressed send on the message, the uncertainty clawing at his insides intensified. The potential for growth loomed before him, but the outcome remained shrouded in mystery. Catching a glimpse of his reflection in a shop window, Jack wondered, had he truly stepped into the unknown? He had opened the door to transformation, but the greatest challenge awaited on the other side. Would he have the courage to embrace the outcomes as they came, regardless of the direction they took? As the sun dipped, below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, Jack sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open in front of him. The flickering light illuminated his focused expression, but his mind was a tempest of ideas, and uncertainty churned within him. He had sent the message to Claire hours earlier, and the silence that followed was almost deafening. Had he miscalculated again? Would their connection still hold the weight he sought to introduce into his work? The clock ticked rhythmically, each second a reminder of the buzzing anticipation and the weight of the unknown. He tried to concentrate on drafting his presentation, infusing it with personal anecdotes and innovative concepts. Yet each word felt like a pebble thrown into a vast ocean, isolated, insufficient to create a ripple. Doubts ignited in him, casting shadows over his ambitious dreams. What did he think would happen? Merely inserting warmth into cold analysis wouldn't be enough to shift perspectives. Jack leaned back in his chair, rechecking his phone. No new notifications. In that moment, he could hear Claire's laughter, the warmth of her spirit, demanding he see beyond data and projections. The pivotal realization struck him. Success wasn't just about values and profit margins. It was about weaving emotion and story back into the fabric of human interaction. Yet here he was, immobilized by fear of rejection, apprehensive about merging personal vulnerability with corporate culture. A decision loomed. He could either let the paralysis of self-doubt dictate his next steps, or push past the discomfort. As his fingers hovered over the keys, he felt a familiar urge to erase everything and revert to formality, to hide behind unfeeling numbers in the name of professionalism. But the memory of that lunch with his colleagues surged back. Their laughter, the connections made, the stories shared. Each moment had shifted something within him, nudging him toward authenticity. Gathering resolve, Jack pivoted his approach. Instead of seeing his colleagues as mere analysts in a numbers-driven labyrinth, he would frame them as collaborators in a shared journey. He began crafting a narrative around their upcoming project, not just the how, but the why. What personal stakes were involved? How did each team member's journey contribute to the collective goal? The more he wrote, the more alive the presentation became. A ping from his phone interrupted his thoughts, and he quickly snatched it up. It was Claire. Would she help him brainstorm? Relief washed over him as hope threaded through his heart. She was on his side. The shared ideas and moments they had before had ignited his desire to integrate the personal into the professional. "Let's meet tomorrow afternoon," he typed back, a smile forming as he hit send. As night settled in, Jack collapsed onto his couch, the adrenaline of creation coursing through him. The possibilities excited him, yet doubts persisted, gnawing at him. What would it mean for him to stand in front of his colleagues, bearing his vision? Was he prepared to confront their indifference? Or worse, rejection? The night was trailed by restless thoughts and what-ifs as he wrestled with the idea of being fully seen, both by Claire and his team. How could he expose the raw essence of his ambitions and aspirations without fearing their judgment? Deep down, he sensed that this could become a defining moment, not just in his career, but in his life. Before he drifted to sleep, a flicker of anxiety ricocheted through him. What if Claire's presence led to more than just collaboration? The prospect of rekindling deeper emotions hung heavily, an exciting and terrifying possibility looming before him. As his eyelids grew heavy, Jack whispered to himself, would this be the moment he reclaimed not just his career, but his heart as well? The question lingered, teasing the boundaries of his consciousness, echoing in an uncharted territory of hope. What awaited in the dawn of their meeting? The morning sun cut through the kitchen window, splashing light over Jack's cluttered table. A fresh urge pulsed through him, pushing dreams and fears aside. Today was pivotal. The moment felt charged with potential. He brewed a pot of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air, igniting a flicker of excitement within him. Each sip seemed to awaken his senses, fueling his determination to break out of the confines of self-doubt. Jack reviewed his notes. The words danced with newfound clarity. He envisioned Claire's insights would add layers he hadn't considered. Their shared conversations echoed in his mind, the exploration of emotional connections over sterile projections. Crafting a narrative that humanized their work wasn't just about job performance. It was about bridging the gap between passion and profession, connecting heart to numbers. As he prepared for their meeting, he questioned his motives. Was he genuinely seeking clarity on the project, or was there a deeper, unspoken desire to know if she felt the same spark he did? Was there more than chemistry, potential for something meaningful? Doubts whispered of the risks, but a deeper voice within urged him to embrace vulnerability. Arriving at the cafe early, Jack claimed a seat by the window and watched the world hustle past. His heart raced, a mix of anxiety and hope. What if Claire didn't share his vision? What if she dismissed his ideas as naive? The familiar spiral of what-ifs tried to clench tight around him, but he resisted, reminding himself of the purpose behind his intentions. Success, fulfillment, and authenticity were all on the line. When Claire arrived, radiant and poised, a sense of ease washed over him. Her bright smile rekindled something deep within, and he leaned into that, determined to let their conversation flow freely. They exchanged pleasantries before diving into the heart of the matter. "Jack, I appreciated your message. I've been thinking about how we can infuse more personal storytelling into our work," she began, her enthusiasm igniting a spark between them. Spurred on by her excitement, Jack shared his vision, detailing how each team member's personal journey could add significance to their project. He watched Claire closely, her eyes shining with intrigue as he articulated his thoughts. This was no longer just about numbers. It was about lives intertwined with the outcomes of their work. As their ideas tumbled together, Jack felt a surge of confidence. He was more than a mere analyst in a sterile environment. He was a storyteller, using the resonance of experiences to redefine a path forward. With each idea they generated, he recognized the power of collaboration. They were building something larger than themselves. Yet, as the conversation flowed, a sense of trepidation lingered. What lay beneath their professional exchange? Though they were anchored in work today, a tension stirred within him that was impossible to ignore. Was this relationship merely professional, or did it hint at something more profound? Time faded as they crafted plans, laughing and brainstorming ideas. But as Jack caught her gaze, an unspoken question loomed between them. The warmth of her presence kindled both desire and fear. What if their connection could become something extraordinary? Closing the cafe, Jack felt hope swell in his chest, balancing the thrill of potential with the anxiety rooted in uncertainty. Success required risk, and the notion of pursuing this dynamic opened a frontier he hadn't dared to explore before. Back in the car, he found himself caught in reflection. He was ready to embrace not just his career's future, but perhaps his heart as well. A thought emerged, pushing against the edges of his consciousness. If he could intertwine their professional journey with deeper truths, could he stake a claim on his emotional life too? The question spun as he drove away, an internal dialogue sparking further exploration. Soon, he'd have to confront these truths head-on. Turning into his driveway, he couldn't shake the feeling that a bridge was forming beneath his feet, one that would either lead to vulnerability or a hard reality. The time was coming to face both his ambitions and his feelings. What awaited him on the other side of this burgeoning revelation would either cement his path forward or send him spiraling into doubt once more. As Jack ventured back into the humdrum of his life, a subtle yet powerful transformation unfolded within him. The exhilarating exchange with Claire had reignited the vibrant threads of connection he had long neglected. He no longer felt like the solitary trader in a world of deals. The warmth of their dialogue had shown him the sheer potential of collective endeavor and the courage that comes from vulnerability. Returning to work, he felt a subtle shift in energy, propelled by the newfound clarity he'd gained. Jack poured himself into the project with a zest that set him apart from his colleagues. Where once there had been a sterile pursuit of numbers, his presentations began to resonate with deeper narratives. Awareness of not only the data, but the lives entwined with it. One afternoon, during a team meeting, he took the plunge. "I want to share a story," he announced, feeling the rush of adrenaline mixed with the thrill of vulnerability. He spoke about the intertwining lives within the project, the impact the team's work would have on families and communities. He could see the surprised looks on his team's faces morph into attentive nods, their skepticism giving way to engagement. As he wrapped up, a palpable sense of connection settled over the group. They were no longer just coworkers. They were storytellers, partners in progress. The atmosphere buzzed with possibility, their shared enthusiasm igniting the air around them. Within weeks, Jack had amassed significant influence within the company. His insights and authentic style captivated both clients and executives alike. Corporate leadership began to recognize him for not just the numbers he crunched, but for his unique ability to bridge the emotional resonance of their work with analytical precision. Jack's confidence swelled. He had proven that vulnerability could lead to meaningful change. Meanwhile, the echo of his interaction with Claire remained vibrant in his mind. She had become more than an echo from the past. She was now a collaborator in a journey toward growth, both personally and professionally. They continued to meet, brainstorming ideas not just for work, but for life. Conversations blossoming between coffee cups and shared laughter, resonating with shared creativity. One rainy afternoon, their conversation took a deeper turn. Claire spoke about her own fears and aspirations, her vulnerability unfurling like petals seeking sunlight. Jack felt something within him shift. A newfound understanding dawned upon him. Their connection wasn't merely professional. It was an avenue to rediscover the essence of life itself. The intimacy he'd hesitated to reclaim began to reemerge, wrapped warmly in their shared ambitions and dreams. "Jack," she said, sliding her hand across the table, her voice steady yet soft with emotion, "I've seen you grow in ways I didn't think were possible. You've inspired me to confront my own fears." Her honesty cut through the noise, and Jack felt a surge of warmth. Here he was, not just as an analyst, but as a man who dared to embrace connection. In that moment, amidst the laughter and the shared storytelling, Jack realized he had conquered the haunting specters of the past. He was no longer merely the success-driven figure he had obediently crafted. He had bared his soul, allowed himself to be seen, and in doing so, liberated not just his career, but also the locked-away parts of his heart. As the seasons changed and their conversations grew deeper, Jack took a leap of faith. "I want to take this further, Claire. I don't want to just collaborate. I want you in my life, in every sense." His voice was full of renewed confidence and authentic purpose. It was a simple invitation, yet it carried the weight of all the uncreated potential that lay ahead. Claire smiled, her eyes sparkling with excitement and recognition. "I feel the same way, Jack. Let's navigate this together, hearts in tandem, not just as colleagues, but as partners, discovering the beauty between ambition and affection." Jack emerged from the blurred lines of his past and stepped firmly into a promising future. He had achieved what seemed elusive, a real connection layered with ambition and rich possibilities. Standing at his office window overlooking the town's bustling streets, he felt the weight of success not as a trophy, but as a foundation built on authenticity, of connection, love, and shared dreams. Jack Thompson was no longer just a name beneath accolades, but a man defined by courage and vulnerability. A man ready to engage with the world in a way he had never dreamed possible. This was his moment of transformation. Now it's time for you to embrace your journey. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire growth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us share more transformative narratives. Comment with your reactions and theories about Jack's journey, because your voice matters. And you need to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel the power of personal overcoming stories. Don't wait even one more second. It's your moment to support this movement.